Okay, on call to order. Today is Thursday, May 9th, 2019, a fiscal year 20 operating budget hearings. We are on day 2 of the Budget and Finance and Metro Council budget hearings. Before us, we have Juvenile Court Judge Sheila Calloway, and we also have Juvenile Court Clerk Lionel Matthews before us. We'll allow you to do the introductions. I don't know if you're going to introduce each other. Tell us what your fund division does for the city, and then you can just walk us through your budget, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Chair, Council Lady. We appreciate this time. We thank you to all of the council who are here and supportive. We definitely want to say a big shout out to our finance team, Ms. Talia Lomax and Ricky Swagger. Richie is in here with us, and we appreciate it, as well as the representatives from the mayor's office. We have several of our people from our team who are here. I want to thank always my administrators. I have my court administrator, Kathy Simbach, who is with us, and then our deputy administrator over the grants and finance, Jim Swack, who is also with us. We are missing our other Deputy Court Administrator Tommy Bradley, who has babysitting duties that he had to deal with today of his grandchild, but he has offered a lot for our team as well. I guess I'll let Bono introduce his
Thank
team.
you, Judge, and I'm happy to be here too. Thank you for allowing us to present together as Juvenile Court and Juvenile Court Clerk's Office has in the past. With me, I have our Chief Deputy Clerk, Avery Patton, also our office manager, Tisa Beniza, and our finance officer, Michael Roth, with us this evening.
And together we'll just talk about some of the wonderful things that we do in juvenile court. As you all know, we handle all of the matters that deal with the best interest of our children, whether it's delinquency, status offenses, parentage, custody cases, or neglected dependency and abuse cases. We handle them all, and we do it well together. Lionel and his office is super supportive of the court staff and everything that we do. As the court staff, I have about 100, I have spots for 130 employees. That ranges from administrative assistants, OSR 3s, probation officers, which we divide into separate teams: our support intervention accountability team, our assessment team, our foster care review board team, our parentage team, and all of them have done a tremendous job over this past year in the work that they've done. We are working to reduce recidivism for the children that come to the system. We are working harder to make sure that parents are connecting with their children and being more responsible, and making sure that we're providing appropriate services for them. We are definitely doing more with our parentage division and helping parents get back on the right track, whether it's paying support, doing visitation for our children or for their children, and just overall making sure that the services for doing whatever we can for the best of our children are in place. We definitely can work with the budget request that has been made by the mayor's office. We appreciate the support that they have given us over the years, and particularly this year. The only requests that we had were to make sure that we could fund the contract that we have with our detention facility. Our detention facility is run by Youth Opportunity Investments, and each year there is we had to, because of the number of youth who were coming in and being held in detention, we had to increase our contract a year ago from 32 beds to 40 beds. And we're averaging about 42 to 43 youth in the beds now. And then we also had a contract escalator for them that was already built in the contract. And so the money that we received from the mayor's budget, or suggested budget, would definitely help us to make the difference in what we need to do for that contract. But we appreciate the support and everything that we're doing down in court.
Yeah, I'd like to add that our staff are very pleased with the cost of living increase that has been proposed, and any step of merits that you all deem necessary in addition to the cost of living adjustments that will be made. And they have been very vocal to both of us about their appreciation. So thank you for any consideration for that.
Thank you, Councilman.
With that, we'll take questions, entertain any questions.
Vice Chair Roden. I don't know what I was up here doing. I'm sorry. Vice Chair Roden.
I was watching you, wondering what you was doing up there. No. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Judge Callaway, I was just looking at your budget, and I kind of know this, but for the folks sitting at home, there's a general budget item, and then you have a grant fund, and you have magistrates that get paid out of each one. Could you kind of explain that to us and kind of where that comes from, just so we understand where that's coming from? Thank you.
Yes, we have 4 different magistrates that are paid out of grant funding. 3 of those magistrates are paid by Title IV-D monies for child support cases. And so those magistrates handle 75%, I think 80%, according to the grant, is paid by the federal funds, and they do all of the child support cases. The one additional grant magistrate that we have is a newer one that we just got since the last time this year, is Magistrate Glanton, and she is our new Safe Babies Court magistrate. The money that is given to her was a grant that was funded through the state of Tennessee. It's operated through the Department of Children's Services, and it's for 6 different jurisdictions across Tennessee to have Safe Babies Court. The purpose of those courts is for children who are 0 to 3 years of age, who have been removed from their parents or at risk of being removed from their parents. And it's a nationally based court model where they have a lot of more intervention. They have weekly meetings. They have weekly court. They also do a lot of where the service providers that are working with the families come to court, come to all the meetings. So there's never any barriers for them to work their plan and work to get their children back. We do a lot of teaching parents how to parent in those classes, such as the need to do serve and return. When you goo at your child and they goo back and, keep doing those things. They do double books where the parent takes a book home, the foster parent takes a book home, and they read the child the same book. The reason that this is so important and it works well is because that 0 to 3 time is critical for brain development for our children, and that is when all of the neurons and whatever brain cells that are going start. I didn't go to med school, so I don't know what they're called, but what I do know is that they're pruning and they're growing, and they have to have good positive development. And so because of that, when children are removed, that's a traumatic experience. And whatever happened to make them get removed is also a traumatic experience. And so we've got to work doubly hard to build that resilience up for those children so that they can become very good citizens. We also know that studies show when you don't do dedicated services to help build the resilience and build the brain cells with those children, there's a stronger likelihood that they'll end up in the delinquency or the criminal justice system later on in life. And so it's really important for us to be on top of it. And so we're super proud of our 0 to 3 court. We have the grant pays for the magistrate and a full-time, and she's part-time, so she only gets to do court once a week. We would love to be able to extend that to more and to have more cases. We don't have the money for that yet, and we're not asking for it at this time. And we also have a full-time coordinator that coordinates the services, coordinates the family, does all of the meetings as well. Jill Overton, and she is knocking it out the box and doing a great job. And so those are our grant-funded magistrates.
Thank you so much for explaining that. As far as the grant funding, since you've been juvenile court judge, is it fairly stable, or does it fluctuate, or you can count on it every year? So
we have been able to count on the grant funding for years. The 4D grant funding has been around for as long as I've probably been old. That's just 25 years, by the way.
Is that all?
Yeah, that's it. But it's been around for a while, and we don't anticipate that funding to go at all. The Safe Babies Court funding, the state just passed even more funding for more jurisdictions to do it, and so I don't anticipate that one going away either.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Councilman, if I could add 2 points to Judge's comments, because she mentioned yet another program that she has started and created, and she's done this a lot over the past 4 years. of making sure that we have the proper programs in place at juvenile court. That grant does not fund the clerk that has to support Safe Babies Court. And so we have made do over this past year because it is a part-time magistrate and part-time court, but through our target savings, we had to give up one full-time position. So that has put a strain. The second point I'll make is that our building was built in 1994. It was built for 3 courtrooms, and it was built to house 20 young people in our detention center. Nashville has seen tremendous growth that I don't think anyone really foresaw when that building was built in 1994. And so we know we're here to talk about the operating budget, but once we do talk about another capital spending plan in the city of Nashville, I do believe that we need to make sure that a new juvenile justice center is part of that conversation. If we really want to adequately administer justice to young people in this city, if we want to do that with adequate space, with the proper services being able to be involved, to add a respite center, then we should consider the proposal and the master planning that was done several years ago in the next capital spending plan.
Thanks, Mr. Matthews, and I appreciate you saying that about the building. Just for everybody in the room and anybody watching today, I work there, and so I'm a little biased. However, this morning I was in a courtroom with Judge Callaway, and we had about 50 to 60 attorneys and all their clients and the clerks and the judge in a space about as large as what the administration is up there. And so if you can imagine how tight that is trying to do work with sensitive issues with children, they're really in need of us trying to get them a new building really soon. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilwoman Porterfield.
You can come use my mic if you want.
She's on.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the work that you all are doing. And Judge Callaway, thank you for speaking on adverse childhood experiences and ACEs. As an educator, I truly speak that language, and I appreciate the knowledge that you have and the work that you're doing surrounding that. I would also like to note that I appreciate that you guys came color coordinated today. That was a great addition to your presentation. My question was, you spoke about the amount of youth that you have on a given day and the contract needing to go up to accommodate 40 youth, but on average, you're having 42 to 43 youth. So with the addition that is being requested, is that enough to accommodate what you are seeing realistically, and how do you all accommodate when you have more youth than you have resources or beds to hold?
Thank you for those questions. That is a good question. We have been over the average of what we're paying for. And so what happens is we agreed by contract to pay for 40 beds. And so when we go over that amount, we have to pay extra. And so we're pulling that extra from the cost savings that we're supposed to be saving. So we're robbing Peter on this side to pay for Paul, in a sense. We've been able to do that. Our savings suggestion this year that was requested from the mayor's office, we didn't quite get it because we did need to pull some of that money in order to pay for the contract. We would love to ask for more money for the additional beds. They go in cycles of 8, and so in order for the staffing, you have to have a certain number of staff per 8 children, and so we'd have to go up to 48, and that would be another additional cost to the budget. Knowing the budget issues this year and the needs to support other agencies such as the police and the school systems and all the other needs that the county has, we determined that it probably wasn't the best time to ask for that, and that we would continue to try and get it from other places in order to make any coverage. We're also thankful and grateful that the mayor suggested that we now can fill those spots that we were using to do cost savings on, and so we will have we'll have more probation officers out in the fields, and hopefully with being able to fill those spots, that we'll be able to stop our children from stealing cars and run around with guns, and so we won't need that extra 48. So that on one end, we're hoping that the count will go down if we are able to have more resources and more people working towards that goal. And we're hoping that our youth will stop doing these things, and so we won't need those spots.
Thank you so much. One more question. You spoke about the recidivism rate And what are you guys doing to address that? I know youth violence has been a huge concern in our city. How are you guys addressing that? And also, what type of wraparound services are you all providing the youth while they're in your facility?
Wonderful. Yeah, you're asking lots of great questions. I can go on and on. First and foremost, we did do a presentation. I believe Councilman Swoop asked us to come previously. We did a council.
And you highlighted some in the questionnaire, but go ahead, Judge.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
You highlighted some in your questionnaire, too. Go ahead.
Yes, that's in there. And youth crime is actually down at this point. However, we are up on the car thefts and the guns, and that is a significant issue that we need to be concerned about as a community. But we are working to address recidivism. We know that the cases that we have diverted from the system, which is nationwide what we should be doing, diverting children away from the justice system. But over the last 2 years of the over almost 3,000 cases that we've diverted, only 8% of them have come back for an additional charge. Of that, only 4% of those were an additional felony. And so we think we're hitting recidivism well. We just keep getting these pockets of car thefts that we just need to figure out the best way to do that. We work a lot with our children in our facilities, as well as a lot of programs for children not in the facility, to make sure that we're providing as much services, positive interventions and interactions, so that they can do well in the society. We know there are so many case studies that show that if you give children positive things, they're going to grow out of this behavior. We just have to give them the right mentorship, the right people around them, provide them with as much positive things as they can, and so that they can learn a better way. And so in our detention facility, we work with the Metro Arts Department, and they provide a lot of restorative justice and practices within the facility. They come in, they do a lot of art programs, a lot of music programs, and we have a lot of counseling. We have a lot of churches that partner and come in and talk to our youth as well. So we have a lot of programs that come within the facility. Out of the facility, we work with Bishop Campbell and the Gentlemen Against Gangsters with our GRIP court, which is Gang Resistant Intervention Program. We have 2 recovery programs, one for the youth and one for the parents. We have the GRIP, we have the Teen Outreach Program, where we're teaching them service learning projects and teaching them how to do things outside to better their community for themselves, to keep them out of trouble. We work with Epic Girl. We work with the REAL program, Reaching Excellence as Leaders. It's out of Oasis. And that's just a short list of some of the things that we do. But we are working. We could always use more partners. We could always use more people to step up and take responsibility for what we need to do together as a community to give our children the best chance to be successful. And that's all we always ask, is that if we can work together to give our children the best chances of surviving. And Mr. Matthews does a lot of that programming as well.
I do, but she already mentioned enough of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the work you do, and thank you for that very detailed answer.
Thank you, Councilwoman Porterfield. Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you very much. You kind of answered my question with the answers to Councilmember Porterfield's question, but maybe just to reframe it and to hear the answer as a response to what I was planning to ask is, I think many people who are not familiar with restorative justice, and I've been so impressed with what you've said is possible through all those programs. But, I hear people say, well, if there are no consequences, kids are just going to do it anyway. So in response to that, could you, I guess, kind of grab all the things that you just said, how effective they are as a response to that concern, so that I can answer those people?
Absolutely. And Councilman Lady Allen, what I normally say when people ask me that, it's a lot harder to have a child sit down with the person who they have offended and say, I'm sorry, this is what I've done, what can I do to make it better? And so that's really what restorative practices does. It helps that person who's done the offense to sit down to the person and the community that they have offended and to come up with ways that they can learn from that. And it opens anybody's eyes that does that. If you can think, I give an example, like when you were younger, if you were playing sports or baseball outside with a bunch of friends and somebody accidentally threw a baseball in somebody's window. And all the kids get scared and they want to run home and not get in trouble for it. And usually a parent will take them back over to that house and say, no, you did this, own up to it and be responsible for it. And they go and they become responsible. That key thing changes someone. And what we do when we stick them in detention is, or if we lock people up, it doesn't give them that accountability piece. And so you miss that. Locking up is easy to do. But when you lock up people without proper services, counseling, ability to hold themselves accountable, you're not doing anything but making people bitter and angry and not increasing what they can do for their betterment when they get out. And so it's a harder thing to do, and people in the community have to understand and be patient with it. But we've got to, this is what we call accountability, and you've got to be able to say, you are accountable for this, let's go and fix it. And so when they learn, this is how it affects me, this is how it affects the people around me, they're ready to make a difference. And we just got to give them an opportunity to do that. And that's what restorative justice does.
That's great. I appreciate you running through that one more time. And then on a totally different capital budget, which I'm not supposed to be talking about, you'd mentioned the master plan for the larger Justice Center. Can you just remind us, as part of that discussion, why we don't just renovate and expand on the current site?
So, like I said, the current site was built in 1994. It was built for 3 courtrooms to house 20 young people in the detention center. We currently run 9.5, if you count the part-time court as a half. We run 9.5 courts. We actually run the Safe Babies Court out of our foster care review board room. Magistrate Rigsby courtroom was an old closet that was converted into a courtroom. There's no space for attorneys to meet privately with their clients. A lot of private conversations happen in a public open area in our lobby, and it's very sensitive material. We actually have a classroom. We run a high school in the detention center. It's built for 20 students. We have to rotate the students in and out of the classroom because we are detaining more young people than the facility was built for. So that master plan called for, I think, 130 or so million was the cost of the new facility. That would be to actually purchase property on a new location and build that facility. And I think I would recommend us looking at probably a phased approach. If we can't do it all at once, let's go ahead, figure out the location, and start taking steps toward what that new facility look like. But the current footprint would not accommodate for us just building out a bigger facility. And so, and we have, I would say, horrible parking issues. With the growth downtown, more companies moving in downtown, our private, we don't have a lot for the attorneys or the clients that come into juvenile court, and so they have to use the paid parking lot. But that parking lot is also rented out through the downtown partnership to businesses, and their employees take up majority of the parking, and attorneys end up coming to my counter complaining about parking lot.
So we can't just build into the parking lot and go from there.
It'd be very unlikely. The current square footage that we have in our building right now is about 95,000 square foot. What we would need to be able to be operational, have all the courtrooms in one building, and have all of the services that we need, we would need 286,000 square foot. And so we are woefully short, and that was from the building study that this council allowed us to have 2 years ago, and it was the need was from 95 to 286, and so it's probably unlikely that it could happen on that space. It'd be a scrunch building on the same space, and there would be a lot to add to it.
Okay, that's very helpful to know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Allen. Councilwoman Gilmore.
Thank you, Chair Percher. Hello, we appreciate both of you, Judge and Mr. Matthews. I had just 2 questions. I guess one was, and you may or may not be able to answer it. The first is, do we know why there are so many carjackings going on amongst our youth right now? Is it some insight, or is it some kind of study that's letting us know that this is, I mean, just do we have any insight on what's going on with that?
Well, let me say first and foremost, we don't have as many carjackings as we do as car thefts.
Yes.
So that's a different thing. We do have some carjackings, but that number has not increased. What has increased is car thefts.
Yeah, the
and what
car
our children
thefts.
are doing, and I don't know, Lionel may have a better feel on this, but they're just going to parking lots and checking car doors. And if your car door is open, they're going to go in and see what's in there and see what they can get. Each week, I'm always amazed when the police send out that report of how many cars that were stolen because the car was open.
Unlocked.
And how many that were stolen with the keys in the car. And that number is always very high. And so it makes it an easy crime in some ways for youth to do. There's not a lot of times where they break in and slam things. They're literally just opening the car doors and getting in. And so,
She said exactly what I was going to say, and she's not exaggerating. I think the number is 60 to 65% of cars are unlocked. Is it 70,
Oh, wow.
Councilman Swope? So it's very high, and so we make it easy for young people to do this, not making an excuse for them doing it, but we do make it easy for them to do it. When they find weapons in cars, so they're looking for specific things. I actually had my car broken into because I left my door unlocked. I'm not going to act like I'm better than anyone else. And I had a computer in there. They didn't take the computer. They were looking for specific things when they go in your car. And so just lock your cars. Don't leave your keys in the cars. And if you have weapons, make sure that you're protecting those weapons and keeping them safe so that they don't get in the hands of young people.
Thank you. And then our next question, and I have one more after this, is mental illness. How do y'all deal with mental illness amongst young people that come through your justice system?
that's a great question. And we are seeing a lot more mental illness, and we are seeing a lot of youth who have been found to be incompetent to stand trial based on their mental illness. And what we have designed is another special docket, which is another strain on our clerk's office, and we appreciate that. But we call it our 207 docket because that's the statute that governs what we do with mental health illnesses. And there, it's difficult. But what we do is one of our magistrates has it once a month. They bring in the children. They figure out who's supposed to be providing services for these children, the mental health services. If they're not getting their services that they need, figuring out who's going to get it done and taking care of it. Because, what we're finding is if we don't do anything, then they're just going to keep doing their behaviors that they've been doing, and it doesn't help. And so we've got to make sure that we're connecting them to the services. I'll have to say, Councilman Roden kind of was one of the starters of this docket because he kept getting some complaints about a particular school in his district and the youth who were from that district getting charges, and most of them were mentally incompetent to stand trial. So we can't put them on probation. We can't do things like that. But we can monitor their progress and we can review them, and that's what we've decided to do, just to make sure that we are getting them the proper services and the mental health services. We need more mental health services for youth in our city as well. So we're low. We have a few agencies that we use, but beyond that, there's sometimes a waiting list to get services placed with different children, which is a lot frustrating. There's very, very little inpatient places for youth in our city. And so a lot of times when we're needing inpatient, we'll have to go through the Department of Children's Services and go through somewhere else in the state. And a lot of times we'll have to send kids to different states in order to get their mental health treatments. And so it's an area that we need growth on.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for creating all those programs, because you will create a program if you see a need, and I really do appreciate that. And I guess my last question is, and I just want to thank you and Mr. Matthews for working so well together. I like how y'all just combine your resources and build on what you have, and especially with our youth. You had talked a little bit about ACEs. What do you think we can do as a city better as it relates to social emotional learning and diversity overall? If you could just give us some pointers on that.
I'll jump in. One thing that we could do is try to become a more trauma-informed city. You could do that through the national agencies, but really creating an environmental culture where we're being more sensitive to what root causes may cause some of the behaviors that we see from young people in our city, how we respond to those behaviors, and how we hold young people accountable. And we're doing that in pockets. You have trauma-informed schools. Fall Hamilton is a great example of a trauma-informed school in our community. All the staff in juvenile court are trained on ACEs and are using trauma-informed practices, but community groups, neighborhood groups should be going through these type of trainings or being made aware. Park staff, everyone that's dealing with young people or that interacts with young people probably should be exposed to this type of training just to make sure that our city is more trauma-informed.
So is there an organization we can look at that offers that, and we can kind of peel back and look more into that?
Definitely. We have in Nashville, ACES Nashville, which is dedicated and designed to making sure that all of Nashville understands what ACE is and how we deal with that. The mayor also, Mayor Briley, developed a health collaborative. I'm on it. I can't remember the name of it. But I know each of you all should have received an invitation to come to the screening of resilience on the 14th. I think that's next Tuesday. It's on your desk, and awesome. And so that community group that I'm part of, that's one of the things that we're doing, is trying to increase the awareness, at least with Metro and Metro employees, about ACEs and how to build resilience for the youth and people in our city, so that we can all be a more healthy city.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Keep up the good work, the both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gilmore. Thank you so much, Judge. Thank you so much, Clerk, for submitting your questionnaire on time and in a timely manner. Just want to also give you just another huge shout out. Thank you for acknowledging the COLA and the steps in this recommended budget on behalf of your employees. Y'all two are the first to do that. And although we're on day 2 of budget hearings, y'all are the first two to do that. So I want to just publicly acknowledge you for acknowledging that during your budget hearing. And that concludes your budget hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
we're all in the same color. Yes.
They're color coordinated.